Hello friends, I thought I'd put together a quick video, just a quick catch-up video. I know that I mentioned in my last that I would give this a little update, but that video was a little bit long, so I decided to just make this video today with some news and stuff that's happened. And I think what we'll do is we'll start off with a little bit of a moan. So I wanted to have a quick moan and add my voice to the chorus that was started by Ralph. About plastic figures versus metal figures. So I think it is largely a question of taste when it comes to things like style and heft. But I also think that there are some plus sides and downsides to plastic sets that just don't really appeal to me. Rather, their perceived plus sides aren't something I think of as a plus side. So to demonstrate this, I want to use these three boxes: the Russian Line Infantry Regiment for the Crimea from Warlord, and then some other Warlord boxes, Celtic Warriors, and a Imperial Roman Veterans. And what I want to do is just demonstrate what I like and don't like about plastics. Okay, so as you saw the boxes, so I've laid them out. So you've got the Roman sprue here, the Gallic sprue here, the Celtic sprue, and then the Crimean sprue here. Now, one of the key things about plastics that have always been the sort of selling point has been the fact that you get a lot of diversity in how you arrange your figures, right? Because you can take, say, for instance, this sprue here, and you can vary the legs with the torsos, with the arms, with the whatever you have, with the heads, etc. And you can, in principle, you can create, a complete, like, very, very, very diverse bunch where no two figures are the same, right? These Romans, slightly less unique per pose. I mean, the standing position is more or less the same. The shields are the shields and the arms are just at various positions, but the idea is that you can be creative or whatever. And for skirmish gaming, I think that's fantastic. That's definitely a selling point. You want to be able to, let's say you're creating a small war band of 10 figures or something. It's kind of nice to be able to have 10 figures that look different, right? So you don't have any duplicates or whatever. And that's fine, right? That's not a problem. I understand that impulse. If we compare that to the Crimean sprue, this is what you get with them. It's just a body and a greatcoat, and you get to pick the head. Now, this for me is the gold standard of plastics. I don't need a load of choices, right? If you look at these Roman legionaries here, these are from Foundry, and they are just basically the same pose repeated, either with a gladius, with a pilum throwing, or with a sword standing. And that's all the variation I need, right? I can create variation by varying the colors slightly, or the skin tones, or whatever, yeah? So there's lots of options there in terms of making things look different. Where it gets silly, I think, is when you spend hours and hours and hours assembling troops that are going to ultimately be ranked up and highly uniform. Right, so I think this Roman set would benefit from having fewer options in a sense. Although this is by no means the main offender. The one I find the most irritating, I think, is where like the legs and the torsos are separate, and you're playing a silly game with plastic glue, and it takes hours and hours and hours to assemble a box. Victrix can be like that sometimes. I've just got some Victrix Austrians here. These are nice because they just, if you look at these figures when they eventually focus, you'll see that again, the only choice you get to make really is the head and the backpack, and that's about it really, which is fine. That ticks the box for me. Now, I think one of the strangest kits ever is this Celtic one. You'll notice a few things. Number one, the legs are very wide apart. They're very energetic. They have these very animated torsos. And the problem with this kit, I think, is that it takes up a lot of space horizontally, right? So what I want you to imagine for a moment is if you have, this is a 60 by 60 base, and let's say we want to put 8 or 6 figures on it, right? Just a rough number that we want to put per base so that our units look nice and full. The issue with this sprue in particular, the Roman sprue won't have this problem, and that Crimean sprue certainly won't have the problem, but the issue is with these ones, the amount of space that a figure takes up horizontally in terms of real estate is far greater, And because they've got their arms poking out and so on at odd angles, and their legs are splayed out and so on, there's very little economizing you can do without spilling over the side of the base. Now, let's say, for instance, you wanted to put 4 of these bases together into a square. You would have the problem of bases kind of intermeshing with each other. Then the other problem that I think comes to mind is that, let's say, for instance, we're not going for multi-bases and we're doing single bases. The problem remains the same. So looking at these feet, you need a pretty hefty, wide sized base, so probably 25 mil or something like that. And then the other problem is that typically games, I don't want to say typically because that's not fair, but most games require figures to get into base-to-base contact or to get close together at points. And the problem here is that, again, as I've said, the sort of horizontal space that each figure takes up is such that it's very difficult to achieve that. I have some Celts from the Perrys, and they don't have the same problem. I think one of the things is probably that you find with plastic sprues versus, say, metal sculpting is maybe it's easier to allow for these sort of more dynamic poses than you would if you had, say, sort of like a metals that were all on a mold, I guess you'd call it, the spinning thing that they use to spin out the figures. You know, the amount of space that the figure takes up horizontally as well as vertically is obviously at a premium in a spinning centrifuge. I'm not sure how it would work either in terms of metal getting into all the parts of the figures. I mean, if you look at some older Games Workshop metal designs, they don't tend to have too many extreme appendages, and if they do, those tend to be separate pieces, which probably wouldn't work too well for a set like this where you want, you know, arms poking out and so on. But anyway, those are just some thoughts. I just wanted to say that when it comes to plastics, I'm kind of in the same camp as Ralph. Yep, that's all I've got to say on that topic. So actually, that wasn't all I had to say about that. I lied. The other thing I think that I would like to bring up is the fact that one of the big benefits of plastics is cost, right? So it makes sense that if you are collecting big battalions, say for the Napoleonic period, being able to buy a box of 40 or 48 French line or Austrian line is great, right? Especially if you can purchase one box for the cost of, you know, maybe half an equivalent unit size in metal. So there's a sort of benefit there, and I'm not averse to that. I myself own several plastic battalions in the Napoleonic period, and for me it's not a big deal. As you can see, I've purchased the Crimean box precisely because it was at a good price. Are they my favorite sculpts? No. Do they need to be my favorite sculpts? No. They serve a purpose. They were cheap, cheerful, and they tick the box, right? So I think the cost element comes in there, but then with that Celtic box in particular, it raises the question, who is the box for, right? It comes with 40 figures that you can assemble out of it. But with their poses being so animated and cartoonish and outlandish and taking up as much space as I described earlier, it seems kind of weird, because if you were playing a skirmish game where you were doing a small warband of, say, 10 figures, you don't need 40, right? The implication, I think, with Hail Caesar is that you want to have larger units, or at least that's how I've always understood it, and that would imply that you want a kind of big, bulky unit. The design of those Celts just doesn't really lend itself to a great density. A friend of mine actually has several stands worth of those figures, and he said it was a nightmare just getting them to basically all gel together. Not only are they a pain to put together, but they also look slightly ridiculous with their poses. Right, so on to some other news. A while back I talked about Aventine Miniatures shutting down shop in September next year, 2025, and subsequently it's been announced that they've been inundated with orders, and it seems that they've had to shut their store down, their online store, repeatedly, because every time they open it they get absolutely smashed with orders. The screenshot I'm showing right now demonstrates that. So I'll just quickly read the text. It might be a bit small, or maybe you're listening to this instead of watching. Once again, we've been bombed by orders, some over the £1,000 mark. You will need to wait for the shipping, as I can only cost so much. There are a month's worth of orders sitting, so the first 2 to 3 weeks, and those towards the later end of the pile. 6 weeks plus. There really is no rush. Adam and I will be here until September next year and on hand to help the new owner once he takes over. Adam will continue to create new stuff, so all is well. Please don't buy everything now and leave the new ownership with low demand. That is the road to ruin. Keep well, Keith. I understand Keith's impulse there. It's one of those things where, obviously he's selling a business, so the future owner wants to make sure that they have something to sell when the time comes. But I also understand the impulse of people that are buying. There's nothing worse than not purchasing figures and then having the manufacturer disappear. Now I know that he assures us that, it's not a big deal. The new owners are getting integrated, etc., etc. But that isn't always how things work. So I just wanted to show an example of what I mean. So many years ago, there was this beautiful range sculpted by Paul Hicks of 28mm World War One era women. For VSF, that kind of thing. But they were just lovely figures. I mean, here's some examples of them painted. They look really, really nice. Anyway, and they were sold under the Hinterland Miniatures label. The annoying thing, I think, was that these figures just dropped off the market for a very long time. People were, I for one, had them bookmarked and with the full intention of purchasing the full range at some point, and I thought, must get those done. I thought I could use them for, obviously for World War One type game, these trench tile ones, but I love these sort of hussars on foot, or the Kriegsmarine ladies, and I thought you could use them for like East Africa or something, as obviously, or a VSF type thing, but you could use them for a multitude of interesting and fun stuff. It's just something a little bit different. Anyway, I didn't buy the figures, and of course I immediately regretted it, because then years passed by. I thought, time's come, let's pick those up, those would be nice to have, and then the range doesn't exist anymore. Anyway, they've eventually resurfaced under the brand of Dragon Bait Miniatures, which is fantastic. The thing is, this announcement was made in May 2024, and it says here he's got a realistic release date for the end of the year, and then here are some snapshots and stuff. And this is brilliant because everyone's really excited, right? Everybody's like, these are fantastic, let's buy them, blah, 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 blah. And then, anyway, so we're now in October, and I've been coming back to this page again and again. On the page, it says, the Dragon Bait page, it says, Hinterland Miniatures coming soon. We're proud to announce we've obtained the rights to sell and produce Hinterland Miniatures. Check back often, as we'll be adding products to the site in the days and weeks ahead. So, yeah, I mean, if I click on here, they're not here yet. And I know he said the end of the year, but like, why bother putting them on the website if they're not for sale, right? And it's obviously, with time they will come back, right? It's not a big deal. But my concern with something like Aventine is we don't know what kind of sale it's going to be. So it may be that the new owner decides that there's certain ranges they don't want to continue to support, or it takes a long time for them to come back. And there's nothing worse than being left in the lurch where you're like partway through a project, you need to buy figures, you want to retain the consistency. This is a poor example because it's quite a niche product, right? But my point being is that like, this range has been sat in the wild for ages. It was purchased in May this year. It's now October. There's still nothing on the website. There's no date there saying like this is when they're coming. There's a link, but it doesn't really go anywhere. It would be awesome if these came back, and I'm really excited that the potential to buy them is coming back. But my concern with Aventine, it's quite a large range, and again, we have no sense that who the new owner is going to be, and also, what the handover time will be, because they might say that, oh yeah, it's all great, somebody's going to line up and buy it. But I think in the past we've seen ranges be bought off by somebody and then like nothing gets done with it. So that's one concern I have with, say, this range, but more importantly with those Aventine ranges, because they are really nice. And I know that like Ralph did a video about some of the really cool figures he bought from them, and I look at those and I'm like, man, those are really nice. I want to buy some of those. The thing is, there's only so much money to go around, right? And you got to make some smart choices. And the reality is that anything we buy could disappear at a moment's notice. These wargaming businesses are not rock solid when it comes to standing the test of time. So I don't know. I'm always slightly nervous when I see this sort of thing. I get that Aventine are trying to do their best, but again, the minute they close up shop and sell the business on, they no longer control any piece of it, right? So it's there's no guarantee that we'll simply be able to on the, the 1st of October 2025, once they shut up shop, be able to buy Aventine miniatures again. It's not necessarily how it's going to work. A similar mechanic has happened with Magister Militum, where I believe they've sold off like individual ranges, but it's not clear who the ranges have gone to, and finding them is difficult, right? So if you had purchased stuff, say like Navigator miniatures 25mm from Magister Militum 20 years ago, I haven't been able to find them. Actually, let's look right now while I'm looking here. Let's type it in Navigator miniatures. Yeah, see, there's nothing here, because if you go to the 28mm range for Navigator, there's just bugger all there, from what I gather. Yeah, it's just like animals and stuff. I remember looking here and seeing like, hey, where are the Alexandrinian stuff? But I think it was only showing certain things. Like, yeah, it just shows animals and shields. It doesn't show the full range, which is, no bueno to me. So that's the kind of thing I'm trying to get across, is there's no guarantee, even if the range gets sold, that it'll be traceable, that you'll be able to find out who it is. I don't think Magister Militum have told us who's bought the various ranges. I wish they had. I suppose I could always contact them and hope that they get back to me. But from what I gather, they've sold up shop and they're done with Magister Militum. So anyway, that was just that thought there. Alright, I just wanted to finish up with a little picture here of some figures that were recently completed. You'll see some rebased Romans, and then next to them a base of Peltasts, which are based for ADLG in 15mm S6 figures. And they're just here for a bit of eye candy. They're going to linger for a little bit. The final point of business is that I am going to Rhodes in November, and the departure date for our trip is going to be around the time of the show Warfare in Farnborough. So looking at my work schedule, I think I'll be in Euston that week before. Then I have to fly home, drop my stuff off, pick my personal stuff up, and then fly out from probably Vancouver to London, Heathrow. So I'll likely land Saturday morning or afternoon-ish, which means I'll probably come to the show on Sunday. So if anybody's around at Warfare on Sunday, I would be very, very pleased to meet up. I know that some people were mentioning, I think Ralph mentioned he was thinking of going. If anybody that watches the channel is planning on going to Warfare, please let me know. I haven't committed fully to it yet, but if I know that people who I follow on YouTube are going to be there, then I'll certainly make an effort to be there for the Sunday at least. I can't guarantee the Saturday, it depends on my arrival time, so that might be slightly less doable, but hopefully I'll be able to meet many people at Warfare. It's always a great show, and always a great opportunity to do some shopping, right? That's all for now. Take care and have a good one.